Welcome to VidZet, your home for careful consideration of our common concerns. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Please remember to support VidZet on Patreon, like us on Facebook, and follow @VidZet on Twitter. By now you've noticed that I don't post until a subject impresses me with its importance, hence the delay since my last post. As the Christmas season comes upon us, far too often we are met with a hostile quote, "Don't tell me to have a Merry Christmas." Happy holidays is okay, but the moment there's a mention of Christ, even in the name of a holiday, it's enough for the left to pull out the silver bullets and wooden stakes. Why would they have such a violent reaction to such a happy time? Let's first assume that Christmas is just a secular holiday with all the commercial trappings. To the secular world, its origin is lost in antiquity. Yet, even with that, it's a time when families get together for expressions of love and affection. All you have to do is watch Home Alone to see that this is truly the center of the season. Yet somehow, the very name remains a microaggression trigger that must be expunged. But such a shallow assessment must be set aside. It simply does not reach to the depths of the hatred displayed by the secular left and their abolitionist movement. Recall that they cannot abide the possibility that a Christian baker might decline to celebrate the sinful union of Patrick Fitzroy to Roy Fitzpatrick. They have to impose their behavior standards on you, and you are supposed to like it. This sort of absolutism finds its source in something we Christians understand very well. The God who created the universe is the God who created us, and He created us with a need to serve Him. This need to serve a greater good is even apparent in the strongest atheists. As the Apostle Paul says in Romans 1:19-20, that which is known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes, His eternal power and divine nature, having been clearly seen, being understood through what they've been made, or through what has been made, so they are without excuse. In plain English, God's infinite greatness is apparent to everyone. But this very fact causes some to rebel against the Creator. They cannot allow themselves to be responsible for serving God. But since God created them with an innate need to serve something greater than themselves, one of two things commonly happens. Some will reject all powers greater than themselves. Unfortunately, the need to serve simply does not go away. The common result is despair. With nothing greater to serve than oneself, the individual falls into hedonism. There's no fulfillment of any kind, and greater depravity results. But nothing along this path can relieve the complete emptiness. The final solution is often suicide. Few fall completely into that trap. Instead, they find the larger purposes in other places in life. For example, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, withdrew from society but served what he saw as a larger purpose by attacking the advance of technology. Not all are that evil. Some do laudable things by creating in ways that improve our lives. But when separated from service to God, all are ultimately left with an emptiness. It is only service to God that fully answers our innate need. But that is completely unacceptable to the hard left. They have rejected God, and so the need to serve Him must be rebelled against violently. Now, before I go on, don't get me wrong. Some on the left are Christians, but they misunderstand the Bible. There's no place in it where the government is commanded to take care of the widows and orphans. Those rules are for individual charity. The radical left cannot abide any mention of God. It has to be trampled into the dust, whether it's a nativity scene in the public park, a Christian bakery, or the word Christmas. Every one of these points a finger at their central need to serve, the need they cannot allow themselves to admit. And the only way they can see is to respond is with a violent denial. It's not enough for them not to use Merry Christmas at their parties. They have to prevent you from saying it at your parties. And only then will a spotlight not shine on their empty spot. It doesn't matter what the higher cause is that a hard lefty chooses. It will be inadequate. It cannot fill his emptiness. You see, ultimately, without God, that lefty is nothing. He is the product of nothingness and will end up in nothingness. That goo to you evolution he believes in ultimately proves that he has no value unless he has to try harder to rub out that knowledge of himself. So he throws himself harder and harder to a purpose bigger than himself. But that purpose will never replace the absence of God in his life. Merry Christmas reminds him of God and his gift to us in Jesus. He can try to move away from the reminder, but it won't work. God's handiwork is everywhere, and Merry Christmas makes it worse. So his rebellion requires that the reminders be eliminated. It doesn't matter what happens to you. His pain is all that matters. And if removing your joy makes his pain a little bit less, then that's what he'll do. Ultimately, this is the source of all the hard left's hate. They won't admit it, because that would be to admit their responsibility toward God. So they'll flatly deny everything I've said. But their anger shows that they are responding to the reality of the situation. Our founders were well aware of God and their obligations to Him. Modern leftists unsuccessfully reject God and His gift to us that we remember at Christmas. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Thanks for listening, and Merry Christmas.